I think to shoot in order is always a luxury. It always really helps because it's like you feel that you're.
For Charlotte Rampling, desire has never been loud, playful, or reassuring. It exists in silence, in eye contact held a second too long, in the space where nothing is explained. She built her career not on charm, but on discomfort, forcing audiences to confront intimacy, control, and vulnerability without escape. Charlotte Rampling was never interested in being desired in the traditional sense. She was interested in seeing and being seen, stripped of performance, stripped of safety. The people who attracted her were never easy lovers or obvious choices. They were individuals who understood restraint, darkness, and the quiet weight of experience. With them, intimacy did not begin with touch, but with trust in what could not be spoken. Tonight, this is not a story about romance or scandal. It is an exploration of six figures who entered Charlotte Rampling's inner world men, and artists who shared her comfort with silence, her refusal of sentimentality, and her belief that true closeness is revealed not in passion, but in stillness. Number 1. Dirk Bogarde. With Dirk Bogarde, attraction existed in territory most people avoid. Bogarde was not a man of easy answers or open emotion. He carried restraint like armor, elegance like a disguise, and silence like a second language. For Charlotte Rampling, this was not distance, it was intimacy. He understood that the most powerful connections often form where words fail. Their artistic proximity unfolded in films that dared to explore moral ambiguity, repression, and psychological tension. Bogarde embodied men who lived with secrets, whose inner lives were shaped by what society refused to acknowledge. Rampling was drawn to that tension because she recognized it. She, too, was uninterested in comfort. She sought truth, even when it was unsettling. What bound them was not romance, but recognition. Bogarde did not try to decode Rampling or soften her edges. He allowed her to exist fully within her complexity. Desire here was not about pursuit. It was about consent to remain unresolved. For audiences with lived experience, this dynamic feels authentic. Some connections are built not on happiness, but on shared understanding of life's shadows. Bogarde represented the man who could sit with discomfort without rushing to explain it away. For Charlotte Rampling, that capacity was deeply seductive. Number 2. Luchino Visconti. If Bogarde embodied emotional restraint, Luchino Visconti represented authority aesthetic, intellectual, and psychological. Visconti did not invite performers into his world gently. He demanded submission to discipline, form, and vision. For Rampling, this was not oppression. It was permission to explore desire under control. Visconti's cinema was obsessed with decay, beauty, and power themes that resonated deeply with Rampling's own instincts. She was drawn to the way he framed intimacy as something ceremonial, almost ritualistic. Under his gaze, desire was not impulsive. It was structured, observed, and intensified through restraint. The attraction here was rooted in trust. Visconti created spaces where vulnerability was protected by rigor. He saw Rampling not as an object, but as a vessel capable of carrying contradiction, fragility and strength, submission and defiance. That duality is where her performances thrived. For mature viewers, this dynamic echoes a truth learned with age. Sometimes we are most free within boundaries we choose. Visconti offered Rampling a framework in which desire could be explored without chaos. It was not romantic intimacy, but artistic closeness, a shared commitment to precision, beauty, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. Number 3. Liliana Cavani. The third figure shifts the story entirely. With Liliana Cavani, attraction moved beyond gender and into confrontation. Cavani was one of the few filmmakers willing to look directly at taboo power, sexuality, guilt without apology. For Charlotte Rampling, this courage was magnetic. Their collaboration demanded absolute trust. Cavani did not protect her characters from judgment, and she did not protect Rampling from risk. Instead, she offered honesty. Together, they explored the darkest corners of human desire, not to provoke, but to understand. The intimacy between them was intellectual and emotional, forged in shared willingness to face what others turned away from. This was not an easy bond. It required Rampling to surrender safety and accept exposure. But that exposure was consensual, purposeful. Cavani respected Rampling's intelligence and resilience. She did not explain away discomfort, she allowed it to exist. For audiences over 50, this relationship speaks to a rare form of closeness, the kind built on shared courage. Attraction here was not about affection or admiration. It was about alignment, two women agreeing to step into difficult terrain together. In these first three figures, Bogard, Visconti, and Cavani, we see the foundation of Charlotte Rampling's inner life. Desire, for her, was never indulgent. It was disciplined, dangerous, and deeply conscious. And as the story continues, that definition only grows more refined. Number 4. Helmut Newton. With Helmut Newton, attraction took the form of exposure, deliberate, controlled, and unflinching. Newton did not photograph women to flatter them. He photographed power, tension, and authority. When Charlotte Rampling stood before his camera, she was not reduced to an object of desire. She became a force negotiating how she would be seen. What drew Rampling to Newton was his honesty about the gaze. He never pretended the camera was neutral. He acknowledged dominance, control, and complicity, and invited his subjects to engage with that truth consciously. For Charlotte, this was not exploitation. It was consent at the highest level. Desire here was the agreement to be fully visible without surrendering agency. Their collaboration carried a charged intimacy. Newton's lens lingered without apology, and Rampling met it without retreat. The tension between observer and observed became the subject itself. This was attraction rooted in mutual respect for strength, the kind that does not need reassurance. For viewers who understand maturity, this dynamic resonates deeply. At a certain stage of life, intimacy is no longer about being idealized, it is about being seen accurately. Newton offered Rampling that accuracy. In his gaze, she did not disappear. She sharpened. Number 5. Jean-Louis Trintignant. If Newton embodied confrontation, Jean-Louis Trintignant represented restraint, the quiet magnetism of emotional economy. Trintignant was a man who spoke softly, moved sparingly, and carried an interior life that never announced itself. For Charlotte Rampling, this understatement was deeply seductive. Their connection lived in pauses, in shared glances, in the understanding that not everything needs articulation. Trintignant's performances often suggested a man worn by experience, someone who had learned to survive by conserving emotion. Rampling recognized that weariness. She shared it. Desire here was not youthful or impulsive. It was mature, reflective, and grounded in acceptance of life's weight. Neither sought to impress the other. Instead, they existed side by side, allowing silence to carry meaning. This kind of intimacy appeals strongly to older audiences who know that passion often softens into something quieter but no less profound. Trintignant represented the possibility of closeness without drama. With him, Rampling did not need to perform intensity. She could rest within it. Attraction, in this sense, was the relief of not having to explain oneself. Number 6. The unnamed presence. The final figure in Charlotte Rampling's private constellation has no public identity, and that anonymity is essential. Throughout her life, Rampling has expressed distrust of spectacle, labels, and romantic narratives imposed from the outside. The person she would most want to sleep with is not necessarily an artist, icon, or collaborator, but someone capable of sharing stillness. This unnamed presence represents a companion who understands solitude without fearing it. Someone who does not demand performance, explanation, or emotional exhibition. For Rampling, intimacy at this stage of life means coexistence, sharing space without intrusion. Attraction here is not sparked by power or brilliance. It grows from recognition, from the sense that two people can occupy the same silence without discomfort. For many viewers over 50, this truth feels earned. desire evolves. It moves away from intensity and toward peace. This final figure completes the arc of Rampling's inner life. After decades of exploring control, confrontation, discipline, and darkness, desire resolves into simplicity, not absence, but presence without demand. In the end, this story was never about scandal or fantasy. It was about how Charlotte Rampling understands intimacy after a lifetime of looking directly at the human condition. The 6 figures in her inner world do not represent conquest or romance in the traditional sense. They represent stages of awareness, silence, control, courage, exposure, restraint, and finally, peace. What makes Charlotte Rampling so compelling to audiences over 50 is that her journey mirrors what many come to realize with age. Desire no longer asks to be entertained, it asks to be respected. It no longer seeks intensity for its own sake, but meaning that can survive silence. Rampling's attractions reveal a woman who never wanted to be rescued, softened, or idealized. She wanted to be met honestly and without illusion. As time passes, intimacy often becomes quieter but more demanding. It asks whether another person can share space without filling it, can witness without judging, and can remain present without control. That is the intimacy Charlotte Rampling chose. If this story resonated with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which form of attraction spoke to you? Most intensity, restraint, or shared silence? Stay with us for more deep, thoughtful explorations of iconic figures whose private worlds reveal truths we only understand with time.